Princess Lyra returned to the capital after her third successful military campaign to find the palace buzzing with unusual activity. Servants whispered in corners, guards seemed nervous, and several high-ranking nobles avoided making eye contact with her. Something was wrong, but she could not identify exactly what. Jake noticed the changed atmosphere immediately. "They are planning something," he told her that evening as they walked in her private garden. "The way people are acting reminds me of human conspiracies. When powerful people feel threatened, they often strike back." "What kind of threat could I possibly be to them?" Princess Lyra asked. "You proved that their entire belief system is wrong," Jake explained. "For thousands of years, Zephyrians have believed that telepathic power and physical strength determine worth. Your victories show that intelligence and strategy can be more important. That terrifies people who built their power on the old system." Princess Lyra thought about this as they continued walking. She had been so focused on proving herself that she had not considered how her success might threaten others. The next morning brought disturbing news. Commander Rex, one of her loyal officers from the Outer Rim campaigns, arrived at the palace with an urgent warning. "Your Highness," he said quietly when they met in private, "my sources tell me that several high-ranking officials are meeting in secret. They speak of you and the human as dangers to the Empire." "Who is involved?" Princess Lyra asked. "General Corax leads the group, along with High Priest Zentron and Lord Vexan, but there are others. Some of your own family members may be part of the conspiracy." Jake, who had been listening carefully, spoke up. "This sounds like they are planning to move against us soon. Conspiracies like this do not wait long once they begin." Princess Lyra felt a chill of fear, but she forced herself to think logically. "What would you do in this situation, Jake?" "I would gather information first," he said. "We need to know exactly who is involved, what they are planning, and when they intend to act. Then we can prepare a response." Over the next few days, Princess Lyra used the network of loyal supporters she had built during her military campaigns. Officers who had seen her tactics work, soldiers who had fought under her command, and even some palace servants who had watched her treat everyone with respect, regardless of their status. The information they gathered was alarming. The conspiracy involved most of the royal court, including 2 of her brothers and several powerful military commanders. They planned to arrest both her and Jake on charges of treason and corrupting the Empire with foreign ideas. "They intend to act during tomorrow night's royal feast," Commander Rex reported. "They believe they can seize you both when you are separated from your supporters." Jake smiled grimly. "They are making the same mistake your brother made. They think they understand how we will react, but they are preparing for the wrong kind of fight." Princess Lyra spent that night putting together a plan that would have made her human teacher proud. She used every principle he had taught her about turning enemy expectations against them, controlling the battlefield, and striking at the right moment with maximum effect. The royal feast began normally, with the entire court gathering in the Great Hall. Princess Lyra attended as expected, wearing formal robes and taking her usual place at the distant end of the long table. Jake was not present, which disappointed some conspirators who had hoped to capture both targets at once. King Valdros sat at the head of the table, unaware of the plot developing around him. He had been deliberately kept uninformed by the conspirators, who planned to present him with a completed action. As the meal progressed, General Corax stood to address the gathering. "Your Majesty, members of the royal family, I must speak about a matter of great importance to our empire." The hall fell silent as the general continued. "We face a threat to our very way of life. Foreign ideas have infected our society through the influence of an alien creature and its misguided protector." Princess Lyra remained calm, showing no reaction to these words. "Princess Lyra has abandoned our traditional values," General Corax declared. "She uses methods that are contrary to Zephyrian nature and spreads these corruptions to our military forces. This cannot be allowed to continue." High Priest Zentron rose to support him. "The sacred traditions of our people are being destroyed by alien influences. We must act to preserve our civilization." Several other conspirators stood to voice agreement. Lord Vexen pointed dramatically at Princess Lyra. This princess and her human pet must be removed before they corrupt our entire empire. King Valdros looked shocked by these accusations. What evidence do you have of these charges? Her victories were achieved through unnatural methods, General Corax replied. She corrupts our soldiers with foreign tactics that go against Zephyrian principles. Princess Lyra finally stood to respond. May I answer these accusations, Father? Speak, King Valdros commanded. Everything they say is true, Princess Lyra said calmly. I do use methods they consider foreign. I have achieved victories they think are impossible, and I have shared these methods with others who wanted to learn them. The conspirators smiled, thinking she was confessing to their charges. But they have made one critical error, Princess Lyra continued. They assume that Jake and I are alone and defenseless. At that moment, every door to the Great Hall opened simultaneously. Commander Rex entered with a full squad of loyal soldiers, while other officers Princess Lyra had worked with took positions around the room. Even some palace guards joined them, having decided that loyalty to the princess was more important than following corrupt orders. Jake Morrison walked calmly into the hall, flanked by two of Princess Lyra's most trusted allies. You see, Princess, Lyra said as the conspirators realized they were surrounded, Jake taught me that the best way to defeat a conspiracy is to let it reveal itself completely before you respond. General Corax reached for his weapon but found himself facing a dozen armed opponents. How did you know? The same way I knew how to defeat raiders, Princess Lyra replied. I studied your patterns, predicted your actions, and prepared accordingly. You made yourselves predictable by assuming you understood how I would react. King Valdros looked around the hall, finally understanding the full scope of what had been happening. You have been planning treason in my own palace. The evidence Princess Lyra presented was overwhelming. She had recordings of secret meetings, documented plans for the coup, and testimony from multiple witnesses. The conspiracy collapsed completely when faced with this level of preparation. How? High Priest Zentron asked in defeat. Because a human taught me that information is the most powerful weapon of all, Princess Lyra said. Jake showed me that. Understanding your enemies is more important than being stronger than them. In the aftermath, King Valdros made a decision that shocked the entire empire. He declared Princess Lyra to be his heir, recognizing that her unique abilities made her the strongest leader the Zephyrians had ever known. My daughter has proven that true strength comes from wisdom, not just power, the king announced to the assembled court. She will rule this empire with methods that honor both our traditions and the lessons we can learn from others. Jake Morrison was given the title of Royal Advisor, becoming the first non-Zephyrian ever to hold such a position. His teachings were incorporated into military academies throughout the empire, revolutionizing how Zephyrian forces would fight future battles. Princess Lyra stood before her father's throne, no longer the weak and overlooked daughter, but a leader who had transformed herself and her entire civilization. She looked at Jake and smiled, remembering his words about how the greatest gift was not what you received, but what you were able to give in return. The human had given her the tools to become truly powerful. In return, she had given him the chance to change an entire galaxy's understanding of strength, wisdom, and the true meaning of leadership. Jake Thompson opened his eyes slowly. His head hurt badly and everything around him looked blurry. He tried to move his arms, but they would not budge. Cold metal straps held his wrists and ankles tight against some kind of table. The air smelled strange, like chemicals mixed with something he could not name. The room was white. Everything was white. The walls, the ceiling, even the floor had a bright white glow that made his eyes water. Strange machines with blinking lights surrounded the table where he lay. Thin tubes and wires connected the machines to each other. Some of them made soft beeping sounds. Jake remembered being in his patrol ship near the edge of Earth's solar system. He was checking for any signs of alien activity when his radar picked up something big. Before he could send a warning message back to base, bright lights had surrounded his ship. Then everything went dark. Now he was here. wherever here was. Heavy footsteps echoed in the room. Jake turned his head to see 3 tall figures walking toward him. They were not human. Each one stood at least 8 feet tall with long, thin arms and legs. Their skin was pale blue like winter ice. Their heads were larger than human heads and shaped like upside-down tears. Where humans had hair, these creatures had smooth skin. Their eyes were big and completely black with no white parts at all. The creatures wore long white coats that looked like the ones doctors wear on Earth. They carried small devices that looked like tablets. One of them, the tallest one, stepped closer to Jake's table. When it spoke, its voice sounded like clicking and whistling noises. A small box near Jake's head made the clicking sounds into English words. "The human subject is awake," the tall creature said through the translator. "Begin the initial examination." Jake tried to speak, but his throat was dry. After a few tries, he managed to say, "Where am I?" The tall creature looked at the others and made more clicking sounds. They seemed surprised that Jake could talk. "You are aboard our research vessel," the translator said. "I am Dr. HFY. We are conducting important scientific work." "What kind of work?" Jake asked. He tried to keep his voice steady, even though his heart was beating fast. Dr. HFY moved around the table looking at different machines. "We study the minds of different species. We learn how they think, what they fear, how they break under pressure. This knowledge helps us understand how to control them." Jake did not like the sound of that. "Control them for what?" "For integration, into our empire, of course," Dr. HFY said as if it was obvious. "We have brought peace to 47 different worlds. Their people live much better lives now that we guide them." "You mean you conquered them?" Jake said. The alien doctor made a sound that might have been laughter. "Such a crude word. We prefer to think of it as helping. These species were fighting among themselves, destroying their planets, living in chaos. We showed them a better way." Dr. HFY picked up one of the tablet devices and started pressing buttons on it. "Your species is new to us. Humans, you call yourselves. We have been watching your world for some time. You seem to be another violent, primitive race that needs our guidance." Jake pulled against the metal straps holding him down, but they were too strong. "Earth doesn't need your help. We can take care of ourselves." "That is what they all say." "At first," Dr. HFY replied. "But they change their minds once they understand what we can do. You see, every species has weaknesses in their minds, fears that go deeper than conscious thought, traumas that break their will to resist. We have developed ways to find these weaknesses and use them." The alien doctor walked over to a large machine with a glass dome on top. Inside the dome, Jake could see green gas swirling around like smoke. "This is our most effective tool," Dr. HFY said with what sounded like pride. "We call it terror essence. It is a gas that affects the brain directly. When a subject breathes it in, they experience their worst fears, their most painful memories, their deepest terrors all at once." Jake felt his stomach tighten. He had heard stories from other soldiers about alien torture methods, but this sounded worse than anything he had imagined. "The gas works on every species we have tested," Dr. HFY continued. "Within minutes, even the strongest warriors become helpless. They will do anything to make the visions stop. They tell us everything we want to know about their planet's defenses, their military secrets, their weaknesses." The other 2 aliens moved around the room, checking different machines and adjusting controls. They seemed to be getting ready for something. "What do you want to know?" Jake asked, trying to buy time while he looked for any way to escape. "Everything," Dr. HFY said simply. "We want to know how many humans live on your world. We want to know about your weapons, your armies, your leaders. We want to know which cities are most important and which ones we should target first." "I won't tell you anything," Jake said. Dr. HFY made the laughing sound again. "You will. They always do. The terror essence makes it impossible to resist. Your mind will show you things so horrible that you will beg us to stop, and we will stop as soon as you give us what we need." The alien doctor pressed more buttons on his device. The machines around the room started humming louder. The green gas in the dome began spinning faster. "We will start with a small dose," Dr. HFY said. Just enough to give you a taste of what is coming. If you cooperate, we can keep the session short. If you resist, well, we have all the time we need." Jake closed his eyes and tried to think of home. He thought about his family, his friends, his duty to protect Earth. Whatever these aliens were planning to do to him, he would not break. He could not break. Too many people were counting on him. The humming grew louder. Dr. Vexahai moved to a control panel covered with blinking lights and strange symbols. His long fingers pressed several buttons in a specific pattern. The machine with the green gas made a hissing sound as pipes connected to it began to glow. "Last chance, human," the alien doctor said through the translator. "Tell us about Earth's defenses and we can avoid this unpleasant process." Jake looked straight up at the white ceiling and said nothing. His jaw was set tight and his hands were clenched into fists even though the metal straps cut into his wrists. Dr. Vexhai made a clicking sound that seemed disappointed. "Very well. You have chosen the difficult path." He turned to the other, two aliens. "Begin the terror essence release. Start with concentration level 3. One of the other aliens, shorter than Dr. Vexhai but with the same pale blue skin, moved to another control panel. It pressed a series of buttons and pulled a lever down slowly. The green gas began to flow through clear tubes that led to vents in the ceiling above Jake's table. "The gas will take about 30 seconds to reach effective levels in your bloodstream," Dr. Vexhai explained as he watched numbers change on a screen. "First you will feel dizzy. Then your heart will beat faster. After that your mind will begin to show you things. Terrible things. Things you have tried to forget." Jake could smell the gas now. It had a sharp smell, like burning metal mixed with something sweet and sick. He tried to hold his breath but knew he could not do that forever. The gas was getting thicker in the air around him. "Fighting it will only make it worse," Dr. Vexhai said. "The terror essence works better when the subject tries to resist. Fear feeds on fear, as we have learned from studying so many species." Jake's lungs started to burn from holding his breath. He had to breathe soon or he would pass out. At least if he was unconscious, he could not tell them anything, but then they would probably just wait for him to wake up and start again. He let out his breath and took in a lungful of the green gas. Dr. Vexhai and the other aliens watched their instruments carefully. Numbers flashed on screens and graphs showed wavy lines that measured Jake's heart rate, brain activity, and stress levels. They expected to see all the numbers jump up as the human's mind was flooded with terror. Instead, something strange happened. Jake's heart rate, which had been fast from fear and anger, began to slow down. His breathing became deeper and more relaxed. The lines on the brain activity monitor showed patterns they had never seen before in any test subject. "Check the equipment," Dr. Vexhai ordered the other aliens. "Something is wrong with our readings." The shorter alien ran diagnostic tests on all the machines, while the third alien checked the gas mixture in the terror essence container. Everything was working perfectly. The gas was exactly the right strength and purity. Jake breathed in more of the green gas and closed his eyes. A small smile appeared on his face. It was not the smile of someone going insane from fear. It was the peaceful smile of someone remembering something pleasant. "What is happening?" Dr. Vexhai asked, more to himself than to anyone else. In all his years of research, in all the species he had tested, nothing like this had ever occurred. The terror essence was supposed to be foolproof. It had never failed before. Jake opened his eyes and looked directly at the alien doctor. "This smells like home," he said quietly. Dr. Vexhai stared at him. "Impossible. The gas is designed to trigger your worst memories, your deepest fears. You should be screaming by now." "Nope," Jake said, taking another deep breath of the green gas. "It smells exactly like Saturday mornings when I was a kid. My dad would get up early to start the charcoal grill in our backyard. He would pile up the charcoal and pour lighter fluid on it, then light it with a match. The whole yard would fill up with that smell of burning charcoal and lighter fluid." The alien doctor frantically checked his instruments again. The readings showed that Jake was indeed experiencing vivid mental images, but his stress levels were dropping instead of rising. His brain patterns looked like those of someone in a peaceful meditative state. "You must be lying," Dr. Vexhai said. The terror essence cannot produce pleasant memories. It is chemically impossible. Jake laughed softly. I'm not lying. While the grill was heating up, my mom would be inside cooking bacon and eggs for breakfast. The smell of the bacon grease and the eggs would mix with the charcoal smoke coming through the kitchen window. That's exactly what this smells like. Dr. Vexhai turned to his assistants and made rapid clicking sounds. Jake could not understand what they were saying, but they sounded worried and confused. Increase the concentration to level 5, Dr. Vexhai finally ordered. The shorter alien looked uncertain but followed the command. More green gas flowed into the room until the air was thick with it. Jake should have been writhing in agony, by now begging them to make it stop. Instead, he seemed to become even more relaxed. Oh, this is even better, Jake said with genuine pleasure in his voice. Now it really smells like camping. When I was in Boy Scouts, we would go camping every summer. We would build a big campfire and cook hot dogs and marshmallows. The smoke from the wood fire mixed with the smell of burning food was the best smell in the world. Dr. Vexhai was beginning to panic. Nothing in his research had prepared him for this. Every species they had encountered had the same basic brain structure when it came to fear responses. Terror essence worked by triggering the parts of the mind that stored traumatic memories and amplifying them until the subject could not think of anything else. But this human seemed to have no traumatic memories at all. Or worse, he was somehow turning the chemical stimulation into positive experiences. Impossible, Dr. Vexhai muttered as he stared at the readings that made no sense. Dr. Vexhai pressed more buttons on his control panel with shaking hands. The readings still made no sense. According to every piece of equipment in the room, the human should be experiencing the worst terror of his life. Instead, Jake Thompson looked more peaceful than when they had started. Maximum concentration, Dr. Vexhai ordered his assistants. Level 10, full strength. The shorter alien hesitated. Doctor, that level has never been tested on a living subject. It could cause permanent brain damage or death. Do it, Dr. Vexhai snapped. This human is somehow resisting our most advanced psychological weapon. We must understand how. The third alien pulled multiple levers and turned several dials. The machine housing the terror essence began to vibrate and make louder humming sounds. Green gas poured into the room so thick that the aliens had to step back from Jake's table to avoid breathing it themselves. Jake took a deep breath of the concentrated gas and sighed happily. Oh wow, this is perfect. Now it smells just like winter evenings at home. Dr. Vexhai stared at him in complete disbelief. What are you talking about? When I was growing up, we had this old fireplace in our living room. Jake explained, his eyes closed and a bigger smile on his face. Every winter night, my dad would build a fire with oak logs and pine kindling. The whole house would fill up with wood smoke. My mom would make hot chocolate and we would all sit around the fire playing board games or just talking. The alien doctor was frantically taking notes on his tablet, trying to understand what was happening. The terror essence is designed to activate fear centers in the brain. It should be showing you your worst memories, not pleasant ones. Jake opened his eyes and looked at Dr. Vexhai with curiosity. What exactly is this gas supposed to do? It finds the darkest corners of your mind, Dr. Vexhai replied, still studying his readings. Every being has experienced trauma, loss, pain, fear. The gas makes those experiences feel real again, but much worse. It amplifies them until the subject cannot think of anything else. Huh, Jake said thoughtfully. Well, I guess that explains why it's not working on me the way you expected. What do you mean? Jake shifted slightly on the table, testing the strength of his restraints while he talked. See, the thing about humans is that we don't really separate good smells from bad smells the same way other species might. Smoke, burning things, even some chemical smells. They remind us of home, family, good times. Dr. Vexhai made rapid clicking sounds to his assistants. They brought over additional monitoring equipment and attached more sensors to Jake's head and chest. Explain this further, the alien doctor demanded. Well, take fire, for example, Jake said. I bet most species you've conquered are afraid of fire, right? It means danger, destruction, death. But for humans, fire means warmth, cooking food, gathering together. We've been using fire for so long that the smell of smoke makes us feel safe, not scared. Dr. Vexhai checked his readings again. Jake's brain activity showed he was telling the truth. The human was genuinely experiencing positive emotions from the terror essence. "This is impossible," Dr. Vexhai muttered. "Fear is universal. Every intelligent species has survival instincts that create fear responses." "Oh, we have fear responses," Jake said casually. "Humans get scared of lots of things. But we also have this weird habit of turning scary things into comfortable things, over time." The alien doctor leaned closer to the table. "Explain." "Okay, let's say a human child is afraid of the dark," Jake began. "Instead of avoiding darkness forever, human parents will teach the child that darkness is when you sleep, when you rest, when you dream good dreams. They make the scary thing into a safe thing." Dr. Vexhai was taking notes as fast as his fingers could move. "Or take loud noises," Jake continued. "Thunder scares lots of human kids at first, but then they learn that thunder means rain is coming and rain helps plants grow. And after thunderstorms, the air smells clean and fresh, so thunder becomes a good sound instead of a scary one." The alien doctor studied his instruments again. Every measurement confirmed that Jake was experiencing genuine positive emotions and memories, not the terror that should have overwhelmed his mind by now. "But surely there are things that frighten your species," Dr. Vexhai said desperately. "Things that would break your will to resist." Jake was quiet for a moment, thinking. Yeah, there are things that scare us. But here's the weird part about humans. The things that scare us most aren't usually physical dangers. "What do you mean?" "Humans are most afraid of being alone, of being forgotten, of failing the people we care about," Jake explained. "We're afraid of not being good enough, not being brave enough, not being strong enough when others need us to be." Dr. Vexhai's eyes widened. This was exactly the kind of psychological weakness his species exploited in their conquests. "But even those fears," Jake continued, "we turn them into motivation. A human who is afraid of failing will work harder to succeed. A human who is afraid of being alone will work harder to build relationships and help others. Fear makes us stronger, not weaker." The alien doctor stepped back from the table, his mind racing. In all his years of research, he had never encountered a species that could transform fear into strength so naturally. "Your species should not exist," Dr. Vexhai said quietly. "By every psychological model we have developed, humans should be easy to control and dominate." Jake grinned. "Yeah, we get that a lot. Humans are pretty weird compared to most species, I guess. We take the worst situations and find ways to make them better. We take the scariest experiences and turn them into stories we tell around campfires. We take the most dangerous places and call them home." The room fell silent except for the humming of machines and the hissing of gas vents. The darkness was complete now. Jake could not see his own hands or the metal straps that held him to the table. The green gas still flowed around him, but now it felt thicker and more suffocating. The alien voices had faded to whispers, then to nothing at all. For the first time since his capture, Jake felt real fear creeping into his mind. Humans were social creatures just like he had told Dr. Vexhai. Being cut off from all contact, from all sound and sight, was one of the few things that could truly break a human's spirit. But as Jake lay there in the thick darkness, something unexpected happened. Instead of panic, he began to hear voices. Not real voices. These were memories playing in his mind, triggered by the strange combination of the terror essence and his own thoughts. He heard his father's voice teaching him how to tie knots when he was 8 years old. He heard his mother humming while she cooked dinner. He heard his best friend laughing at a joke during their military training. The voices were not frightening. They were comforting. Jake realized that Dr. Vexhai had made a crucial mistake. The alien doctor thought that isolation meant being alone, but humans carried their connections with them wherever they went. Every person who had ever mattered to Jake was still with him in his memories, in the lessons they had taught him, in the love they had shared. "You're still there, aren't you?" Jake said quietly into the darkness. From somewhere far away, Dr. Vexhai's voice came through the translator system. "What did you say?" "I was talking to my dad," Jake replied calmly. "He taught me that being alone and being lonely are two different things. You can be surrounded by people and still feel lonely if you don't have real connections. But you can also be completely alone and still feel connected if you carry the right people in your heart. There was silence from the aliens for several minutes. Jake could imagine Dr. Vexhai frantically checking his instruments, trying to understand why the isolation was not working. Increase the terror essence concentration, Dr. Vexhai finally ordered. Maximum levels. This must work. More green gas flooded the chamber until Jake could barely breathe. But instead of fear, the gas now triggered even stronger memories. He remembered every camping trip, every family barbecue, every moment around a warm fire with people he loved. The chemical that was supposed to break his mind was instead filling it with everything that made him strong. Jake began to work on the metal straps holding his wrists. During his conversation with the aliens, he had been slowly testing their strength and looking for weak points. The strap on his left wrist had a small crack where it was welded to the table. Each time the aliens had been distracted by his explanations, he had worked at that crack. Now, in the darkness and thick gas, Jake put all his strength into pulling against the damaged strap. Metal fatigue and constant pressure had weakened the weld point. With a soft snap, the strap broke. Jake quickly freed his other hand and then worked on the straps holding his legs. The aliens' monitoring equipment was focused on his brain activity and vital signs. They were not watching for physical movement, especially not in the complete darkness they had created. Within minutes, Jake was free from the table. He stood, up slowly, letting his eyes adjust to the darkness. The room was not completely black after all. Faint lights from the alien equipment provided just enough glow for him to see basic shapes. Jake moved carefully toward where he remembered seeing the door when he had first awakened. His military training had taught him to always note escape, routes even when captured. The door was not locked because the aliens had never expected him to break free from their restraint system. The hallway outside the examination room was dimly lit with blue lights. Jake could hear alien voices in the distance, but they were coming from the direction of what seemed to be the ship's control center. He needed to go the opposite way to find an escape pod or communication system. As Jake moved through the alien ship, he discovered something important. The walls were covered with display screens showing information about the aliens' previous conquests. Planet after planet, species after species, all defeated by the terror essence. Billions of beings, reduced to helpless terror by the same gas that had smelled like home to Jake. Jake found a computer terminal and tried to access the ship's systems. The alien language was impossible to read, but the ship's computer had translation capabilities for dealing with conquered species. Jake was able to switch the interface to English. What he found in the computer files made his blood run cold. The aliens had detailed plans for Earth's invasion. They knew about human military bases, population centers, and government structures. They had been watching Earth for years, preparing for conquest. But Jake also found something that gave him hope. The alien fleet was not as large as he had feared. They relied on psychological warfare because they did not have the numbers for a direct military assault. If their terror essence did not work on humans, their entire invasion strategy would collapse. Jake downloaded as much information as he could onto a portable data device he found near the computer. Then he made his way to the ship's communication array and sent a coded message to Earth Defense Command, warning them about the coming invasion and providing all the intelligence he had gathered. Finally, Jake found the escape pod bay. As he prepared to launch toward Earth, he could hear alarms beginning to sound throughout the alien ship. Dr. Vexhai and his crew had finally discovered that their test subject was gone. Jake sealed himself into an escape pod and launched into space. As Earth grew larger in the viewport, he smiled and took a deep breath of clean, normal air. Behind him, the alien research vessel was already changing course, retreating from Earth's solar system. Dr. Vexhai would report to his superiors that humans were too dangerous to conquer with their current methods. Jake had turned their greatest weapon into the smell of home.